Level design in Sonic games. It's a thing that exists! An often overlooked part of Sonic games during discussions, even though they are usually the make or break aspects on someone's enjoyment of the game, level design comes in several different shapes and sizes, and the philosophies present in them are usually bent from game to game. The thing that makes Sonic 3 levels different from Sonic Generations levels, you feel me? And to give it an even stronger example, what makes Sonic 3 different from Sonic 2? Same exact engine, same exact physics, but it's still undoubtedly a very different experience. And while level design isn't the only difference, it is in terms of gameplay pretty much. Now, you know when comparing or try to make an example out of something with the classics, people always refer to all of them at once. The classics is always how they're referred to. Rarely is an individual game brought up in discussion, it's always the classics. And on the surface, I understand why. Usually when they're brought into discussion, that discussion is usually always about momentum or something of the sort, and all of them share that aspect with each other. Thus, instead of a single game brought up, it's the classics in their entirety. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, it's actually because these games and their level design are almost completely different from one another. Describing them all as the classics is sort of vague because, well, the classics were a lot of things. Sure, it's the most consistent era from this series, it's essentially the same physics each and every time, but like I said previously, the level design of them differs quite a bit. So, why not talk about each of them and what they do differently? What I think certain games do right, what I think some do wrong, and what I think certain games do a bit of both. So sit back, relax, and fucking, I don't know, eat popcorn or like play Fortnite or like stroke your penis or something. The choice is on yours. I'm just a little voice on your screen, man. I don't really care. Obviously, we have to start at Sonic 1. I could get funny, though. Now, Sonic 1 is pretty interesting, because in hindsight, it is very different from the other classics and sticks out like a sore thumb. Good thing another game sticks out even more. Sonic 1 set the groundwork for this franchise's level design and established several philosophies that would be present through it as well. Classic Sonic level design at its core is using Sonic's physics and acceleration to traverse levels in order to beat the levels faster and in more interesting ways. Sonic was, and still is today, very unique in how its level design is. You see, most platformers are very linear in nature. There's usually one path, straight to the goal for all the level designers to cram in as many intentional challenges as they want. Sometimes there'll be a little secret hidden somewhere that you can go to, but it usually just puts you right back on the linear path once you're done checking it out. Sonic, on the other hand, while having a point A to B formula, has much more to its levels than a traditional platformer does. Sonic 1 established the multi-tiered level design the series would adopt in every future game. Instead of having a single path, Sonic levels have multiple, each acting as pseudo-fail-win routes for different levels of play. Traditionally, there's a top, middle, and bottom path. Bottom is usually for poor performance in stage, being slower than the other two. The middle is the sort of in-between. It's indicative of rather average skill from a player and is a bit faster than the bottom path. The top path is always the quickest one. It requires the most skill to get to, and the most to stay on. You see, a constant challenge with the middle and top paths are staying on them. One mistimed jump and you have the potential to get sent back all the way down to the bottom route. It's a pretty simple system, and it can slightly vary from game to game. Sometimes there could be 4 or more routes, sometimes only 2, but you get the general idea. The reason for these multiple routes is because, like I said before, to reward player skill, but it's also a result of Sonic's pinball physics. There's so much nuance to Sonic's movement that running and jumping at the peak of a slope grants you extra height, so they accommodated for it. Oftentimes, the way of getting to higher paths is by platforming well, and platforming well using Sonic's physics. And because of that, Sonic's level design is very unique from most other platformers. Green Hill, Starlight, and Spring Yard all take this approach that I've mentioned before. However, as you'll know with Sonic 1, these are only half the levels. The other half are almost completely different in their philosophy. Marble Zone, Labyrinth, and Scrap Brain are all very linear, slower stages. This doesn't mean they don't fit Sonic, in my opinion. However, instead of prioritizing slope physics, it instead takes advantage of Sonic's acceleration. Marble Zone is a great example of this, as even though you'll be gaining 0 speed from slopes when indoors, you will be gaining speed for certain shortcuts via Sonic's natural acceleration. Labyrinth is the same, although you're hindered a bit too much to get any enjoyment out of it via the water. And Scrap Brain is similar enough to Marble, although there's actually more paths this time, and I really like it because of that. Sonic games will drop the focus on just acceleration in future titles, honing in on purely the slope physics, and despite me liking the different approach for this game mostly, I'm not very upset about it. I think it's smart to hone in on the best aspects of Sonic, so I don't mind at all. Now, before we continue, if you like the video so far, be sure to subscribe as I'm trying to hit 10K by the end of the year. I've also got a Patreon which you can support, link in the description, to get early access to videos, and it's the best way to support me. It would truly mean a lot. But anyways, on to our next game. Sonic CD, stop me if you heard this one before, is a very exploratory game. I'm gonna keep this brief because I just made a whole video on this last week, but I'll give you the footnotes, because if I didn't, I could just talk about it for another 10 minutes, and I can't do that again. Sonic CD is a very exploratory game, more focused on open-ended level design with different routes and paths that don't neatly fit into a top, bottom, or middle path. The bottom path has the potential to be just as helpful as the top path. The middle path is sometimes just a part of both paths, kind of, or it's its own thing. It's a sandbox, essentially, without clearly defined routes for a lot of its runtime. You're instead intended to take these bits and pieces of level sections and turn them into your own route, leading to the most experimental, interesting, and engaging gameplay in the entire series, in my opinion. The entire game bends to you, not the other way around like you may think. You can play how you want to play and make whatever route you want to make. But yeah, great game, 20 out of 10. Go watch my video on it after this one. Sonic 2 is next up, and this one would act as the catalyst for a big shift in how Sonic level design was tackled. So, most things that Sonic 1 established are here, namely the multiple paths and how you get to them. However, Sonic 2 introduced something that caused a chain reaction through the rest of the franchise: spectacle. Now, technically, both Sonic 1 and CD have these small moments of automated spectacle, but they were very few and far between, and never truly impeded the moment-to-moment gameplay. With Sonic 2, that is completely different. Sonic 2's level design is focused on having the player as interested in the game at any given moment, meaning you'll do a small amount of platforming, then an automated section where Sonic rolls down a hill or something, then back to brief platforming. This, in my opinion, is pretty bad. A lot of what I love about other classic games is how your current speed is always impacting your moment-to-moment gameplay, and the next section you run through can change drastically depending on the speed you came in with after the previous section. Sonic 2 and how it structures its levels de-emphasizes the moment-to-moment gameplay, in my opinion. One thing I will give credit to Sonic 2 for that I can't say in a future title is that I feel like it does a fine enough job, for the most part, of balancing the length of its automation. Aside from some stinkers like Chemical Plant and Oil Ocean, the length of automation isn't that crazy. And then there's some stages where there's rarely any at all, which I really enjoy, and I think the game really shines when there's none. That's why Mystic Cave is my, and honestly a lot more people as time goes on, favorite zone, although it still suffers from some other Sonic 2-isms. The different routes in Sonic 2 are kinda lame, and the means of getting to them are also sorta lame. Aquatic Ruin is a good stage, but getting onto and staying on the top path is purely reliant on about 3 jumps in the entire stage. The top route itself is also very uninteresting, as it's largely a straight shot forward with 1 or 2 jumps sprinkled in here or there. Despite this, at its worst, I still don't think this is horrible. I have my gripes with the level structure for sure, but all in all, even in most of its weakest moments, Sonic is such a fun character to play as that the worst I can deem about some of these moments, like the Aquatic Ruin top path, is inoffensive. Despite my gripes with it, it's pretty much all of these top paths that I take issue with still have a decent enough flow to them, and they still feel engaging enough. These are not bad routes, they're just a little bit mindless. I think staying on the top paths is incredibly fun in certain games because of how much you have to fight to stay up there, but I don't feel that in a lot of Sonic 2 stages, and the consequences for dropping down is very little most of the time. Despite this, as I said, Sonic 2 is still a pretty good game. It just doesn't scratch this itch and seems to require less from the player than other games. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, okay, here we go. I also do not like this game's structure that much, as I feel the platforming and speed balance everyone praises is sorta lame. As the contrarian I am, I have to oppose all goodwill given to this game. As usual, most things established before apply here, except the one big change is how the balance of platforming and speed is done. In Sonic 2 and sometimes 1, automated sections of spectacle were sort of scattered throughout here or there, and they weren't placed in a super formulaic way. You'd go through 2 sections of platforming, then 5 seconds of automation, but then 15 seconds of platforming, and then like 2 seconds of automation, and it kept the cycle feeling pretty fresh. I often describe Sonic 2 as going through the motions, and while I still feel that way, that feeling is amplified with Sonic 3. Sonic 3's level design is so incredibly formulaic that I find myself constantly bored with these stages even at high-level play. The changes they've made to the speed and platforming balance, in my opinion, are bad. Now, it feels so easy to predict how the sections will go. You do some basic slow platforming, then get flung through an automated section. Go back for some more methodical, slow platforming, then more high-speed automation spectacle fun time. You get the picture. I don't like this as number one. I do not like the flow that the platforming sections here have. For the most part, they're all very slow and methodical, and it doesn't help that they're all handled the exact same way due to how one-note most obstacles are. And they aren't slow in the Marble Zone way, where it's designed more like a Mario stage with the ability to go fast at high-level play. It's designed like a Sonic stage, which on paper is a good thing, and it probably is, but it's one that purposefully hinders you and makes operating these sections at high speeds really hard a lot of the time. In Marble Zone, I felt like I could go faster, and I usually was able to. In Sonic 3, I don't really feel that way. That opinion is way more, well, opinionated than the others, where I feel like I've been pretty accurate on everything, but that's how I feel, at least with Sonic 3. But it's not like speedrunning or going fast through them is impossible or anything, and it's also not a skill issue on my part. Sonic games are the only games I'm good at, so please just don't use that argument on me. I swear to God, it's the only good thing I'm fucking good at. But what I'm saying is that a lot of top paths to play optimally are all very stop and go. Take Ice Cap, for example. Once you stay on the top path for a bit, the entire rest of the stage is a linear straight shot with uninteresting platforming and constant stop and go gameplay. This is what I mean. However, going back to that platforming and speed balance, it inarguably works. Think about it. No matter how much I dislike it, it is completely inarguable that the structure of level design absolutely worked. Because of the way it handles this formulaic structure of speed section then platforming section, this makes it so the player is being constantly rewarded for any ounce of platforming, no matter how menial. It keeps the player engaged 24/7, and even if someone is to get annoyed at a certain platforming section, well, an automated one that rewards the time spent in the platforming one is soon to follow. Because of this, it's hard for me to fully critique it or outright call it bad, because it fucking works. It proved itself. That is a winning formula. In my eyes, though, while it makes it so everyone can enjoy the game, I feel as though it puts a hard cap of sorts on the skill ceiling. Suddenly, improving at the game is really easy, and being good is almost boring. So for me, improving at the game feels kind of hollow. It feels like something any average Joe could do within 1 or 2 replays, and it just makes time attacking the game feel really pointless and kinda boring. Speaking of boring, Sonic Mania! I like this game, just as I like Sonic 3 and Sonic 2. Genuinely, I do like these games, despite how much I critique them. However, this sort of takes Sonic 3 and crams in the worst aspects of Sonic 2, with top paths are easy to get to, time attacking is boring as it's really easy to get good at, the speed sections, Jesus Christ, the speed section. There are so fucking many of them, and like, surely the luster of them has to wear off for other people too, right? I mean, it's non-gameplay. It is the absence of gameplay. I wouldn't be mad if they were rare, or maybe like 5 times a level, but like, Christ, it gets to the point where nearly half of the playtime spent in these levels is just watching the fireworks. Again, not a bad game, and although it feels a bit brain dead at points, I still do genuinely like it. It's just, I'm kinda over it. But last, and certainly not least, Sonic Superstars. It's funny when people say constantly this game did little to innovate or evolve the classic formula and is uninspired, when first off, that's not really true, and secondly, bro, where the fuck was this energy for Mania? That game did fucking nothing. But anyway, Superstars is the biggest evolution in terms of level design philosophy for the classics since the jump from Sonic 2 to 3. The biggest change comes in how this game handles its platforming and speed balance, and this is, in my opinion, that balance perfected for classic Sonic. So like I mentioned before, my main gripe with Sonic 3's level structure was how formulaic it was, and how there were clearly defined platforming and speed sections one after the other. Well, here, that's completely thrown out the window. Now, there are speed sections and moments of automated spectacle, no doubt, however the difference is that they're used way more sparingly, and in return we get levels which are around 90% actual gameplay and platforming. The game blurs the lines of what is and isn't considered a platforming or speed section, and I think that leads to the moment-to-moment gameplay feeling so strong and the flow state so fun. Unlike in Sonic 3, where a lot of top paths almost force you to slow down, there's always a reasonable way to go at the very least a decent pace in all these levels, and it's a blast. I feel like I'm fully in control of Sonic here at most every moment, and it makes those sections where I actually do go really fast, either via an automated section or just clever gameplay on my own, feel truly rewarding. Take Pinball Carnival Act 1 as an example. You get interrupted, fun and engaging platforming for a good while, and then a very small automated section. Then you go through more interrupted platforming, and then the stage ends off with an automated section. That's perfect. That's great. That's an amazing balance, and it's structured in a way where the automation is genuinely warranted. Same goes for Frozen Base Act 1. You play through a bit of the stage and get a decently lengthy automated section, all things considered, but after that, that's it. That's all the automation pretty much. Not to mention that automated section has a really cool skip you can do with a thoughtful slope jump at the end of it. So yeah, there's even that. Sonic Superstars evolves on the level design present in Sonic 3 in great ways, and it, in my opinion, perfected the speed and platforming balance of classic Sonic. One last thing to note about Superstars levels, though, is that I love how unique each of these stages are. Each of them have a gimmick that fundamentally changes how the level is played in a uniquely Sonic way. Some have the option to stop you, but they equally can act as tools for a skilled player. Never have the level gimmicks been so front and center this consistently, and I really love it. I think this game might also have the best level gimmicks out of any Sonic game, as, like I said before, they're non-binary. You heard me. But anyways, I had a lot of fun talking about each of these games, and there's probably a lot more I could talk about, to be honest. If this video does well, I might end up making a video like this on the Boost games and their level designs. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile, you can support me on Patreon and get early access to videos. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.